Hello, BookTube. This morning I thought I'd start on the second shelf of the big wall bookcase, bookcase number 4. Um, we first did the top of the bookcase running all the way across the wall, which was primarily art, architecture, that sort of thing. This is I'm calling it the second shelf because it's the second one down from the ones that run across the top. I guess technically it would be the first, but we'll call it the second. And the first subject area that deals with is books and history of books and collecting and all that sort of thing. So I thought I'd start with this. This is Keith Houston, The Book, a cover-to-cover exploration of the most powerful object of our time. It was published by W.W. Norton and Company, independent publishers since 1923, New York and London, 2016. Now to start with, I'd like to show you a little something they did here, which I thought was wonderful, and I don't know how well you can read all these things. So, and they do it on the spine too. So here is the head top, spine. You see how they have everything delineated? Even say logo. On the cover here, they do head. Let's see here, hinge, binding tape, foot, so title, foredge for here. So they do this throughout. So here, half title, ad card. So whenever you're talking about books, it gives you the tools. Even on the title page, look how they did this. You've got subtitle, title, dingbat, which is this right here, author, imprint. So it's well illustrated, absolutely marvelous handbook on the history of books, printing. It gives good world coverage. It talks a lot about the Chinese. The notes are excellent, so you know where the information comes from. It's a good index. So this is a good reference work for people who booktube or do anything else with books. So Keith Houston, The Book. I'm gonna have to find a place to pile these because my little table here won't handle the weight. This thing here is a more scholarly job. It's called The Book, A Global History, edited by Michael F. Suarez, Society of Jesuits, and H.R. Woodheisen. Both of names that you would see a lot if you're into the history of the book. So The Book, A Global History, Oxford University Press. And this was... let's see what date they're putting on this. 2013. Now this is, I believe, a distillation of articles from the Oxford Companion to the Book, which was a big 2-volume, absolutely stunning thing, which I wish I owned. It just was out of my price range. I don't even know if they're available anymore. They may be. But this is articles about the history of the book around the world, and it's very up to date. So it begins with thematic studies, writing systems, the sacred book, the ancient book, the history of the book in Byzantium, the European medieval book, the European printing revolution, the book as symbol. I'm not going to read everything. Then they go into regional national histories of the book. Britain, 1475 to 1800. Britain, 1801 to 1914. Britain from 1914. Ireland, France, Low Countries, Germany, Switzerland, Iberian Peninsula, Italy, modern Greece, Austria, all the way through. So these are probably, if you're doing research in a particular time and place or history of the book, this is hard to beat. The wonderful, wonderful book. Next is something a little more popular, a history reading, Alberto Manguel, for those of you who like reading about reading or reading about the history of the book, his name should be familiar. There's the inside. You can see I paid $8. The history of reading. Alberto Manuel, Viking. Let's see, this one came out in 1996. Absolutely fun book to read, and I'm a big fan of his. Love to see his personal library. I've seen it on. You can actually find it on YouTube. Just look up his name, Alberto Manuel. There's the spelling for anybody who needs it, and you can get. I don't even know if he lives in France anymore. But they had a video of his personal library while he was living in France, and it's pretty amazing. But he's devoted his life to books. Now one's a more specialized book. I refer to it often. Books and Readers in the Early Church. This is by Harry Y. Gamble, A History of the Early Christian Texts. Yale University Press, New Haven in London, 1996. I'll show you what I do. I go back to these things, and you'll notice a lot of times I have two bookmarks going. It's because I'm following the notes. In a more scholarly book, it just makes it more practical for me to keep track of what's going on, what the arguments are. Very good book. Let me move some of these out of the way so I can. And this is an older volume, and probably in my list of top books I've ever read. It's called Testaments of Time. The Search for Lost Manuscripts and Records by Leo Duell. It's a NOP. Let's see. Borzai book. New York, Alfred A. Knopf, 1966. Yes, it's dated. Absolutely magnificent. Intellectual history that's an adventure story. If you can find this book and you're a book person, this is one to own and read and reread. It's the search for ancient manuscripts, lost books, something that became a big deal in the Renaissance when they were trying to find classic texts. Tischendorf in the Near East, looking for ancient biblical texts. It's just that whole adventure story, and as well as it's ever been done. It would be nice if someone with the correct background was to try to do a book like this now. There are some that are similar, but I've never read one that was this good. So that's Testaments of Time, The Search for Lost Manuscripts and Records, Leo Duell. This one, Warren Chappell, A Short History of the Printed Word, is a standard. I hope that didn't have too much of a glow because of the... hopefully you can see it. This is a standard reference book. New York Times book, A Short History of the Printed Word. New York, Alfred Knopf, 1970. So this is going to have it's the basic references for print. Beautifully, beautifully illustrated. So if you're reading about the Dove Bible, or you're reading about Kelmscott Press, or any of this stuff, this is going to give you the story behind it. You're reading about Caxton, you're reading any of these things, Gutenberg, obviously, but here's the yellow book. We've talked about that before on this channel. So this is its standard reference. So A Short History of the Printed Word, Chappell. I'll save this one for a while. This is just eye candy. Well, it's more than just, but for me, it's eye candy. Beautiful book bindings. 1,000 Years of the Bookbinder's Art. And pages. PJM Marks. The British Library and Oak Knoll Press. If you're into the history of publishing, printing presses, that sort of thing, Oak Knoll Press is something you watch for. They can be a bit pricey. Every once in a while you'll see like one of these remaindered houses get a bunch of them. And you almost grab them and just hope for the best. Because they're worth taking a risk on, even if you don't know what they are. So here's the title page. Just show you some of the bindings. It's a whole history of bindings, which is a subject in and of itself. So, and this one, it just fell out. This is an erratum slip. So there was a problem with a caption after this book was already printed. So you'll find these books, sometimes they're bound right in, these slips that correct whatever the problem is. So in this case, it's a caption for something on page 185. Next is one that's fairly easy to find, the Smithsonian Book of Books by Michael Omar. Smithsonian Books, Washington, D.C. Let's see. The introduction's by Christopher DeHamel, who is somebody we will see here in a bit. Let's see if I can line that up there. So for people who are interested in the history of the book, Christopher DeHamel's quite a name. So this is going to give you the highlights, the standard stuff you should know, and amply, beautifully illustrated. So Smithsonian Book of Books, Michael Omar. This is a bit older. Great Books and Book Collectors. Again, I've had it covered, so hopefully you can see without too much glare. Beautiful design. The Great Books and Book Collectors, Alan G. Thomas, Excalibur Books, New York. So this one, the advantage is collectors themselves have a history. And one of the nice things about this book is it discusses them. And a lot of our great collections in libraries come from these collectors. Either portions of their collections or their entire collections. And then we take a full video just to discuss some of the bigger names. And that becomes part of our cultural heritage. So if you work in a rare book library or you have a great one in your town, it's sometimes nice to know where these things came from. And then, of course, it talks about the great books throughout history and printing and the collectors themselves. So, Great Books and Book Collectors, Alan G. Thomas. I'm going through these fairly quick. This next one for bibliophiles, people who love books, this is just a wonderful book. It's, The Gentle Madness, Bibliophiles, Bibliomanes, and the Eternal Passion for Books by Nicholas A. Basbanes, or Basbanes, or I always say Basbanes. On paper. This book is a treasure. Henry Holt and Company, New York. And this one here is 1995. I'll give you some of the illustrations. This is The Book Fool by Albert Durer. Sebastian Banch book. By my thumb there is Samuel Pepys, whose entire library, I believe, can be seen. Including the bookshelves he had made special for it. So this is, here's a Aaron Lansky, founder of the National Yiddish Book Center. Going around saving Yiddish books. Wonderful story there. Actually, enjoyed that a lot. So if you want to know about book collectors, book thieves, all the adventure of this sort of thing. A Gentle Madness by Nicholas Basbanes is a wonderful read. It's a pretty hefty tome, but you'll find yourself flying through it with the stories and everything like that. So, very good book. So that's the very first part of the fourth bookcase, second shelf. Thank you, BookTube.